Respect is not a gift that falls into your lap. It is not something you can beg for or demand from others and expect it to last. True respect is cultivated from the inside out, and the very first step begins with you. People will only treat you at the level you treat yourself. If you minimize your worth, if you apologize for existing, if you shrink to make others feel more comfortable, then you're silently teaching them that it's acceptable to undervalue you. The foundation of respect is self-respect, and without that, every interaction you have will be built on shaky ground. Think about how you enter a room. Do you walk in with your head lowered, shoulders slouched, trying to be unnoticed? Or do you stand upright, owning the space you occupy without saying a word? Human beings make snap judgments within seconds. Before you even speak, your body language, your energy, and your presence are communicating. Respect is earned when your presence communicates certainty. You don't have to be arrogant, you don't have to be aggressive, but you do need to be certain of who you are and what you stand for. Certainty is magnetic. People don't gravitate toward the loudest voice in the room. They gravitate toward the most grounded one, the one who seems unshakable. Self-respect also shows up in the way you talk to yourself. The words you choose internally shape the way you show up externally. If you constantly criticize yourself, telling yourself you're not good enough, not smart enough, not strong enough, you're programming your mind to accept less. That internal dialogue leaks into your tone, your posture, your decisions. Respect begins when you change that conversation. Replace "I can't" with "I will figure it out." Replace "I don't deserve this" with "I've earned my place here." When you speak to yourself with dignity, you naturally carry yourself with dignity. People pick up on that energy. They sense when you value yourself and when you don't. Another element of self-respect is how you spend your time. If you give it away carelessly, if you say yes to everyone and everything out of fear of disappointing them, you're signaling that your time doesn't hold much value. People will treat your time the way you treat it. When you guard it, when you prioritize where and with whom you spend it, others begin to recognize its worth. Your time is your life. It is your most valuable currency, and when you act like it matters, you set a silent standard for how others interact with you. Respect is also connected to how you handle yourself under pressure. There will always be moments when people test your boundaries or attempt to undermine you. In those situations, self-respect means you don't collapse, you don't lash out, and you don't over-explain yourself. You respond with calm, measured certainty. Think of it like this: when you know who you are, you don't need to convince anyone else. The strongest form of respect you can command comes from quiet confidence. It's not about proving your worth. It's about embodying it so clearly that others can't ignore it. One of the mistakes people make when trying to gain respect is that they chase it externally. They try to please everyone, to be liked, to be agreeable at all costs. But there's a difference between being liked and being respected. Being liked means you conform to what others want. Being respected means you stay true to yourself even when it's inconvenient. Respect often comes with discomfort because it requires you to say no, to draw the line, and to stand firm even when people push back. But that firmness doesn't need to come with anger or hostility. It comes with certainty, and certainty is always quiet and unshaken. Even the small, everyday habits reveal whether or not you respect yourself. Do you keep your word to yourself? If you set a goal, do you follow through? When you say you're going to do something, and you actually do it, you train your brain to see yourself as dependable. That reliability builds inner confidence, and confidence is the soil in which respect grows. People trust those who are consistent, and trust is inseparable from respect. Finally, respect begins with the way you frame your worth. Too often, people attach their value to external validation, job titles, social status, material possessions. While achievements can enhance your credibility, they should never define your sense of self. Respect rooted in external factors can disappear the moment those things are stripped away, but respect built on inner worth is untouchable. When you know that your value is not negotiable, that it comes from your integrity, your principles, and your character, you no longer need to chase approval. You radiate it from within, and that radiation commands respect naturally. The word "no" is one of the most powerful tools you will ever use to build respect and protect your boundaries, but for many people, it is also the most difficult word to say. From a young age, many of us are conditioned to avoid conflict, to keep the peace, and to please others even at our own expense. The result is that when someone asks for our time, our energy, or even our integrity, we find ourselves saying yes, when everything inside of us is screaming no. Every time that happens, we give away a piece of our self-respect. When you learn how to say no with confidence, you take back control of your life. You stop living on other people's terms and start living on your own. Saying no doesn't make you mean, it doesn't make you selfish, and it doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest, and honesty is the backbone of respect. People may not always like your no, but they will respect it, because deep down they recognize that you're clear about who you are and what you stand for. Think about the times you've said yes, when you really wanted to decline. You agreed to a commitment you didn't have time for. You lent your energy to someone who constantly takes without giving back. You sacrificed your priorities just to avoid disappointing someone else. Afterwards, how did you feel? Probably frustrated, drained, maybe even resentful. That resentment doesn't just disappear, it builds up over time. It makes you feel powerless, and powerless people are rarely respected. Every unwanted yes chips away at your authority. Boundaries are not built with walls, they are built with words. And no is the cornerstone of those boundaries. Saying no tells people, I value my time, I value my energy, and I value myself too much to give it away freely. When you say yes out of obligation, you're essentially saying, my needs don't matter. But when you say no with clarity and calmness, you send the opposite message. I matter, my priorities matter, my life matters. That is the foundation of respect. It's important to understand that how you deliver no matters just as much as the word itself. You don't need to over-explain, defend, or justify yourself. The more you explain, the more you open the door for negotiation. Respectful boundaries are clear and firm, not defensive or apologetic. A simple I can't do that, or that doesn't work for me, is enough. The less you feel the need to justify your boundary, the more powerfully it is received. At first, saying no will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort comes from the fear of letting people down, the fear of being judged, or the fear of rejection. But here's the truth, every time you say yes to something that goes against your values, you are rejecting yourself. And the rejection of self is far more damaging than the rejection of others. When you choose self-respect over approval, you step into real strength. People sense that strength, and they begin to treat you differently because of it. Another thing to remember is that saying no is not just about denying others, it's about affirming yourself. Every no is actually a yes to something greater. When you decline an invitation that doesn't serve you, you're saying yes to your peace of mind. When you refuse to take on extra work that overwhelms you, you're saying yes to your mental health. When you decline toxic relationships or draining conversations, you're saying yes to protecting your emotional energy. Saying no is not an act of rejection, it's an act of prioritization. Over time, people will learn to respect your boundaries because they will realize that your yes actually means something. If you always say yes out of fear or obligation, your word loses its weight. But if your yes comes selectively and thoughtfully, people know it's real. That's what gives it value. People respect what they can count on, and a person who can say no when needed is someone whose yes can always be trusted. Learning the power of no also teaches others how to behave around you. If you consistently allow people to cross your boundaries without resistance, they will continue to do so. Human nature pushes limits. It's what people do. But when you respond with a firm no, you're teaching them exactly where the line is. Once they know the line, most people will respect it. If they don't, that reveals something important. They're not respecting you, and those are not people you need in your inner circle. The ability to say no also sets the tone for your personal standards. Standards are what separate respected individuals from those who are overlooked. People with standards don't just accept whatever comes their way. They choose intentionally what they allow into their lives. That intentionality comes across in every interaction. People sense it in the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, and the way you handle requests. Standards create respect, and no is the language that protects those standards. One of the biggest mistakes people make when it comes to respect and boundaries is letting emotions dictate their decisions. Emotions are powerful and they serve an important purpose, but when they take control of your decision-making process, they weaken your ability to set clear boundaries. Respect comes from clarity and consistency, not from reacting impulsively out of fear, guilt, or the desire for approval. If you are constantly saying yes because you're afraid of disappointing someone, or if you allow guilt to push you into commitments that go against your values, you are giving away your authority piece by piece. When emotions run the show, people notice. They can sense when your boundaries are soft, when your words don't align with your actions, and when your choices can be swayed by pressure. This makes it easy for others to take advantage of you, even unintentionally. Someone who respects themselves does not make decisions based solely on how they feel in the moment. They pause, they assess, and they ask, does this align with my values, my priorities, and my long-term goals? That pause is what separates someone who commands respect from someone who struggles to earn it. Consider situations where guilt creeps in. Perhaps a friend asks you for a favor you don't have time for. You feel guilty saying no because you don't want to let them down, so you agree, even though it stretches you thin. In that moment, guilt dictated your decision, and while it may have avoided short-term conflict, it created long-term consequences for you. Or think about times when fear drives you. Fear of rejection makes you say yes to relationships or opportunities that don't serve you. Fear of confrontation keeps you silent when someone crosses your boundaries. In each of those cases, fear robs you of respect because it shows that you are not leading yourself. You are being led by your emotions. To separate emotions from decisions, you have to practice awareness. Awareness means noticing when guilt, fear, or the need for approval shows up, and then refusing to act on it immediately. Instead, you slow down. You ask yourself, am I about to make this decision because it's truly right for me, or because I'm afraid of how someone else will react? That moment of reflection gives you back control. It shifts you from reactive to intentional, and intentional people always earn more respect. Respect grows when people realize you are not easily swayed. When you make decisions based on logic, values, and principles instead of fleeting emotions, you become someone others take seriously. They know they can't manipulate you with guilt. They know fear won't make you fold. They know your approval is not up for sale, that steadiness commands attention because it's rare. Many people are controlled by their emotions without even realizing it, so when they encounter someone who isn't, it stands out. Separating emotions from decisions doesn't mean ignoring your feelings or pretending they don't exist. Feelings are real, and they often point to important truths, but feelings are not facts, and they shouldn't be the sole driver of your choices. You can acknowledge that you feel guilty about saying no while still saying no. You can recognize that you're afraid of conflict while still standing firm in your boundary. You can notice that you want approval while reminding yourself that self-respect is more valuable than external validation. Respect is not about being emotionless, it's about leading with discipline instead of impulse. Another key part of separating emotions from decisions is setting standards in advance. When you already know what you will and won't tolerate, you don't have to wrestle with feelings in the moment. If your standard is that you won't work beyond a certain number of hours a week, then when someone asks you to take on more, your decision is clear. If your standard is that you don't entertain toxic conversations, then when someone tries to pull you into drama, you walk away. Standards act as anchors that hold you steady when emotions try to pull you off course. It's also worth noting that emotions can cloud judgment in both directions. Sometimes, positive emotions like excitement or admiration can make us say yes when we should say no. For example, the thrill of being included in an opportunity might make you overlook whether it truly aligns with your values. Admiration for someone might push you to give more than you're comfortable with, just to earn their approval. In both cases, you're still making decisions based on feelings rather than principles, and that can erode respect just as much as fear or guilt. When you learn to separate emotions from decisions, you also communicate something powerful to others: reliability. People know they can trust your word because it isn't dependent on your mood that day. They know your boundaries won't disappear the moment they apply emotional pressure. That reliability is the backbone of respect. People respect those they can count on, and you can only be counted on when your decisions are grounded in clarity rather than emotions. Respect isn't something you get by announcing it. You can't just say, "These are my boundaries," and expect people to follow them. Words set the tone, but actions seal the deal. If your words and actions don't align, people will always follow your actions. Consistency is what creates credibility, and credibility is the foundation of respect. If you say one thing but do another, you send mixed signals, and mixed signals weaken boundaries. People start to test you not because they are malicious, but because you've shown them that the rules change depending on the situation. Respect requires that your actions reinforce your standards every single time. Think of it this way. If someone crosses your boundary once and you let it slide, you've just taught them that your boundary is flexible. If you say you don't tolerate lateness, but then excuse it repeatedly, people learn that your words don't carry weight. On the other hand, when you enforce your boundary the first time it's crossed, you send a message without needing to repeat yourself. Consistency teaches people how to treat you. If they know that a certain behavior is always met with the same response, they'll stop testing it. Consistency also applies to how you show up for yourself. If you declare that you'll no longer allow people to drain your energy, but then continue to answer every call and text from toxic individuals, you undermine your own credibility. Boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself from others. They're about holding yourself accountable. When you consistently honor your own standards, you create an identity that others can't ignore. People start to see you as someone dependable, someone with integrity, and someone whose word means something. That reputation builds respect over time. Another important aspect of consistency is the way you handle consequences. Boundaries without consequences are just suggestions. If you say that you won't tolerate disrespect, but then laugh it off or ignore it when it happens, you're signaling that your words are empty. Consequences don't need to be dramatic, they just need to be real. It could be as simple as walking away from a conversation that becomes disrespectful, or refusing to engage with someone who continually crosses the line. When people see that you consistently enforce your boundaries, they learn that your limits are non-negotiable. Consistency doesn't mean rigidity. It's not about being harsh or unforgiving. It's about being steady. People respect steadiness because it shows discipline. They know what to expect from you, and that predictability builds trust. Imagine a leader who changes their standards every week depending on their mood. That leader won't be respected because no one knows where they actually stand. But a leader who holds the same standard no matter what earns respect because everyone knows the rules and knows they apply to everyone equally. Consistency also protects you from being manipulated. When your actions are predictable and aligned with your standards, people realize they can't persuade you to bend. They stop trying to push your boundaries because they know it won't work. This doesn't just command respect, it creates peace. You no longer waste energy explaining yourself or defending your choices. Your consistency speaks for you. It creates an unspoken authority that others recognize without you needing to force it. One of the challenges of consistency is that it requires discipline, especially when emotions get involved. It's easy to let boundaries slide when you're tired, when you feel guilty, or when you want to avoid conflict. But every time you make an exception for convenience, you weaken your credibility. Consistency is not about perfection. It's about choosing alignment with your standards more often than not, even when it's uncomfortable. That discomfort is where respect grows because it shows others, and yourself, that your values aren't negotiable. Even small, everyday choices contribute to consistency. If you commit to arriving on time, honor that commitment. If you decide to speak up when someone interrupts you, follow through. If you promise yourself that you won't take work calls after a certain hour, stick to it. Each consistent action builds a pattern, and patterns create identity. Over time, you become known as the person who does what they say, who enforces what they declare, and who doesn't bend under pressure. That identity commands respect because it's rare. Consistency doesn't require you to be aggressive or forceful. In fact, it often speaks louder when delivered calmly. There is strength in quiet repetition, in showing again and again that you mean what you say. Over time, people don't just respect your boundaries, they trust you. And trust is inseparable from respect. When your actions and your words are consistently aligned, you don't have to demand respect. It comes naturally because you've earned it through discipline, reliability, and integrity. Respect is never a one-way street. You cannot expect people to honor your boundaries and value your presence if you refuse to extend the same courtesy to them. One of the most powerful ways to command respect is to demonstrate that you live by the very standards you expect from others. People watch how you treat them and they remember it. If you want to be respected, you must first practice respect, because respect that is demanded but not given never lasts. Respecting others begins with listening. When someone says no, honor it without argument. When someone shares their perspective, listen fully instead of waiting for your turn to speak. Too often, people demand respect while simultaneously dismissing the voices around them. That contradiction erodes credibility. On the other hand, when you show people that their boundaries and their words carry weight with you, they are far more likely to extend that same level of regard back to you. Respect builds a cycle. The more you give it, the more it comes back to you. Another important element of reciprocal respect is how you handle time and energy. Just as you don't want others to waste your time, you must be mindful not to waste theirs. Show up on time, keep your promises, don't overstep or make constant demands that drain people. Boundaries are about fairness, and fairness must go both ways. When people see that you value their time and their commitments as much as your own, they view you as balanced and trustworthy. That trust deepens their respect for you. Reciprocal respect also requires recognizing that everyone has limits, not just you. If you only enforce your own boundaries but trample on others, you're not building respect, you're building resentment. The strongest people are those who not only protect themselves, but also create space for others to protect themselves. For example, if someone chooses to disconnect after work hours, respect that choice rather than expecting constant availability. When you normalize boundaries as mutual and necessary, you set a standard for healthier interactions. It's also important to remember that respect is shown through consistency in your values. If you expect honesty, be honest yourself. If you demand integrity, demonstrate integrity in your own behavior. People notice hypocrisy quickly, and nothing destroys respect faster. Integrity is contagious. When you live it, people respond to it. They see that you don't just talk about respect. You embody it in the way you treat others. Reciprocal respect does not mean people-pleasing. It does not mean you compromise your values or give away your power to keep others happy. It means you uphold your boundaries while honoring theirs. That balance creates relationships that are grounded in equality rather than control. The strongest connections are built when both sides feel seen, valued, and respected. That balance doesn't weaken your authority. It strengthens it, because it shows that you're fair. People respect fairness even if they don't always agree with you. When you lead with respect, you also send an unspoken message. I don't need to control you to control myself. That confidence is magnetic. People naturally gravitate toward those who treat them with dignity, because dignity is rare. Too many interactions are transactional, based on what someone can gain or take. But when you operate with fairness and mutual regard, you stand out. Respect is not about dominance, it's about influence, and influence is earned through how you treat people, not through how loudly you demand authority. Respect being reciprocal also protects you from unnecessary conflict. When people feel that their boundaries matter to you, they are less likely to push against yours. They see the fairness, and fairness creates cooperation. Instead of constant power struggles, you create an environment where both sides can thrive. That kind of respect doesn't just build stronger boundaries, it builds stronger relationships, whether personal or professional. Ultimately, respect that flows both ways creates trust. Trust that you will stand firm in your own boundaries. Trust that you will also honor the boundaries of others. Trust that you will communicate with fairness and act with integrity. That trust becomes the glue that holds respect together. Without reciprocity, respect crumbles. With it, respect becomes unshakable because it is rooted in mutual recognition and shared dignity. Respect and boundaries go hand in hand, and both begin with you. When you carry yourself with self-respect, when you protect your time and energy with the power of no, When you make decisions based on values instead of emotions, and when your actions consistently align with your words, you create a standard that people cannot ignore. But that standard is not about control, it's about balance. Respect that is demanded through fear or force never lasts, but respect that is earned through clarity, integrity, and reciprocity becomes unshakable. The moment you decide to honor yourself, to live by your own rules, and to extend the same fairness to others, you stop chasing respect and start embodying it. And when you embody respect, you don't just gain it, you inspire it everywhere you go.